Hello guys, welcome to this video. Now, I've just finished building this model right here, and that's going to be the main one I go through in this video because it is probably only one of very few watches I have ever made that uses only Seiko parts. I'm used to building things like this, which is based on a Seiko 5 Sports SRPD55 dive watch model. And this has had all sorts of things done to it. It has a double dome sapphire crystal installed. It's got a ceramic dual time bezel. It's supposed to look like the Sprite. It's got the Mercedes hand. It's got a brushed chapter ring. It's got an aftermarket solid Jubilee bracelet. It even has a sapphire case back. Now, I usually do this because we take a Seiko watch and improve it, make it better. But what I often think is, what could you make only from Seiko parts? Because a lot of parts I've just went through there, they're not original Seiko parts. The dial is original, the case is original, the bezel, the crown, in some cases the case back, the movement, and depending on how far you go, and you'll see many more examples on my website, SVK Watches, obviously you have to get more parts, it's more expensive and so on. That's the sort of what traditionally Seiko modding was, taking a standard Seiko watch and making it better. But I thought I'd challenge myself to try and make a watch using only Seiko parts, a watch that doesn't exist. And here it is. So I just so happen to have a bunch of parts available to try this out. So we've got a SNKP22J1 Arabic dial. This is the white and gold reference. I actually had the standard watch for that. I will go through exactly how I put this together in a minute as well. So the dial, handset, and pretty much every part on this watch is original Seiko. There is no modified parts. So essentially you could buy two Seiko watches and make this model. I didn't do it that way around. I just happen to have the parts anyway because I build a lot of watches. I get a lot of requests, and I end up with some spares occasionally, or cases I don't use, dials I don't use, and so on. And this one, I wanted to try this sort of black and gold, but not really two-tone, with the white dial, and I think it just looks awesome. I really like. You can just about see it there. Can you see that made in Japan text around 7 o'clock? Because of that standard Seiko mineral glass, this is their Hardlex crystal, flat, standard crystal, but it's got that edge, and that does sort of play with this white contrasting dial. So you get a little bit of distortion around the edge, which I quite like in this model. It has a aluminium standard bezel. This case is what is from, I believe, the SRPD57. So essentially same watch as what this started off life at, but the gold sort of dial version. And I needed that dial for something else, so I was left with the case, bezel, everything. So I just simply, here's how it went basically. I took a white Arabic dial Seiko original watch, and I collected all these parts. So apart from that, we've got the original hands from the SRPD as well. Obviously the case, I didn't even need to remove the crystal from that case. So this is actually, I can absolutely guarantee you the water resistance of this one. I do anyway with all my watches, but I didn't even need to remove the crystal here. So in fact, if you had one of those Nemoki toolkits I've been mentioning in past videos, you could actually do this mod yourself. So we've also obviously taken that white dial watch apart, and the tricky thing here is changing the dial to work with a 4 o'clock movement. Now I decided just to keep the 7S26 movement for this prototype model. I could have used a 4R36 or something, but I wanted it to be a true originally Seiko made, Seiko branded movement. So I just kept the one from the white dial watch. I did have another Seiko original day wheel. So if we have a look, sorry, that's the quick set date. And then this way, so we've got English and Arabic. And You know, I do worry, I don't read Arabic myself, but I do worry sometimes perhaps the aftermarket ones don't get the spellings quite right. I know the Seiko ones will fit perfectly and will work, so that came out of another Seiko watch, possibly the original one from here. Now on the back we've got a original case back, of course. We've got that 7S26 movement, so the only difference is it doesn't hand wind or stop seconds. So this just spins in the closed position, but it's a perfectly usable movement. I still have these in a lot of my own watches and I have no issue with them. The accuracy is exactly the same as the NH36. So I thought, why not just keep it for now? This is somewhat of a prototype, just a bit of a fun build. But I really like how it came out. I feel like I love the contrast in the dial, the original parts, and including original parts, I've got this bracelet. Now, this is from the new Seiko SSK model. So it was important that it had an original Seiko bracelet, but as you know, I'm not a big fan of most Seiko bracelets. This is literally the first good SKX type, SRPD type bracelet I have seen from Seiko, and it's on the new GMT. Now I've got that model still, and I took the bracelet off it and put it on here as well. So just to challenge myself to get a good quality watch out of only Seiko parts. Do you think Seiko should make this model? I certainly do, and I think it came out really nice. Really nice contrast dial. This is not trying to be something it isn't. It is simply a good combination of high quality original Seiko parts. So, you know, I've gone for the more solid bracelet. I've gone for the quality case. It's got a lovely bezel action. As you can see there, it's got an original movement from a made in Japan watch as well. So it's probably going to be a little more accurate and reliable than some of those others you might see. And I just love the look of it. I couldn't wait to show you guys, so I've just literally finished putting it together and I wanted to record this video straight away. I will give you a wrist shot in a moment. So yeah, that's kind of shows you, if you want better specs and certain looks, you will have to go for aftermarket parts. But as long as you keep the heart of the watch as a Seiko, you're not going to go wrong, really. I do get an awful lot of requests for people send me photos they've seen of for example, this Sprite, but with the Cyclops with only a date. And straight away, I usually have to tell the people, that's a fake dial. That is not an original Seiko dial, and therefore it's not something I recommend you do, because you kind of lose the character of the watch. So you can go about that a couple of ways. In this case, I'm keeping a bit of Seiko character in there, but obviously it's inspired and a homage to the Rolex sort of GMT. In this case, it is pure Seiko. So literally complete Seiko parts. It doesn't look like anything else I've ever seen, really. And I think it looks really, really great. So hopefully we might see Seiko making these Arabic dial diver models in a nicer configuration than the ones they might have released before. So let's have a look at it on my wrist. I believe this bracelet should be sized okay. It is a good bracelet, surprisingly good for a Seiko bracelet. So this is on my 7 3/4 inch wrist, about 19 centimeters or so. So I've got a big wrist, but this one definitely has a bit of presence with that nice white dial, not overpoweringly gold. Of course, it will look great on a rubber strap and an oyster style bracelet. I do have the original Seiko oyster type, but it doesn't taper. I really prefer bracelets that taper, so this is the first one I've seen from Seiko that does that. Now, this one will be available on my website as it is, as a completely standard Seiko model, and I'm going to be offering it at a very reasonable cost. However, there will also be an option to upgrade it. So for example, if you like this model, but you would rather it have sapphire, or you'd rather it have the NH movement, or you'd rather it have a ceramic bezel, or a different bracelet, or a different set of hands, or whatever, absolutely fine. Let me know and I'll help you out with any mod parts for this watch or any of the others on my channel, my website, my Instagram at Seikomodsdubai, and SVK Watches, which is my key website now, so please go head there and have a look at some of the other builds I've done and all the latest watches available now. Okay, thanks a lot guys, hope you enjoyed this one, one of my first proper only Seiko parts builds. I'm quite proud of it. I think I might even wear this for the next week because I just love looking at it. Let me know what you think, should Seiko make this watch, and I'll see you later on.